Desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Becker-Finn moves to amend Senate File Number 3656, the second engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A28.
I recognize the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would request a roll call.
Roll call being requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this amendment removes language that is at best a bad idea and at worst a violation of the Constitution of the United States of America. If I've learned anything in my time here in this body, it's that many of you lack understanding of tribal sovereignty and lack understanding of our Constitution beyond one or two amendments. So I'm gonna walk through this so that hopefully we can all better understand what's going on. Treaties between the United States and Native nations are the supreme law of the land. And before you jump out of your seat to tell me that, no, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, it is actually the Constitution that tells us that treaties are the supreme law of the land. It is in Article 6. If you want to check, I always have my Constitution with me. Hopefully you do too. So if you support the Constitution of the United States of America, you should support the concept of treaties being the supreme law of the land. So the language that this amendment would take out is regarding Mille Lacs and the Fisheries Committee there. So in 1999, the United States Supreme Court upheld the rights of tribal members to hunt, fish, and gather in the ceded territory as dictated in the 1837 treaty with the Ojibwe people. To be clear, those rights have always belonged to the Ojibwe people and have always been held by them prior to contact with settlers, prior to Minnesota even being a state. They are not special rights. It's not special treatment. It's a right that was always held by them and was never ceded when they ceded the territory itself. Those rights were retained at all times prior to and after the treaty agreement with the United States. So I also don't want you to now stand up and talk about how it's somehow unfair for Ojibwe people to work to protect those rights that are guaranteed to them. If you want to talk about unfairness, please keep in mind what Ojibwe people have endured for centuries. If you choose to not see this suffering and unfairness endured by your Native neighbors and constituents, you are willfully choosing to lessen that Ojibwe experience here in Minnesota over the past 300+ years. So with that backdrop, following the 1999 U.S. Supreme Court decision and related litigation, the 1837 Ceded Territories Fishery Committee, Technical Committee was formed. The committee was formed by agreement between sovereign Native nations and Minnesota government. Now most of you, and especially those of you who have experience in business, you know that an agreement is a contract. And contracts require offer and acceptance and agreement by both parties. If you have a finalized contract and you've already signed off, one side can't just decide later that they want it to be different and add a new provision to that contract without the other side agreeing. These are basic legal principles, like first day of law school legal principles. If you choose not to accept these principles as our law, you are choosing to legislate poorly. Willful ignorance is your problem and shouldn't be codified in our law.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Krisha.
I'd like to rise to Section 124 Masons that in a debate, a member must confine remarks to the question before the House and avoid personalities.
Members, let us make sure that when we are debating the issue, not the personality. Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While I love the Constitution, it does not have a personality, so I'm just going to keep talking about our law and the Constitution. The language here in this bill that was based on a bill introduced earlier this session by Representative Erickson would essentially dictate that a new provision could be unilaterally added to a contract that's already been finalized. So my amendment would remove that problematic language. A vote for my amendment is a vote upholding the Constitution of the United States of America, a vote for tribal sovereignty, and a vote that shows you have an understanding of basic contract law. So be smart, vote yes. Thank you.
Discussion. Member from Roseau, Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the conversation. This is permissive language. If the DNR can work out an agreement with the tribes, then they may do this. So I would recommend a no vote. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, a roll call being requested, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 51 ayes, 74 nays, the A28 amendment is not adopted.